Good morning, dear students. So, we are going to continue with the story Birth by A.J. Cronin. And you had read the story yesterday till where Andrew Manson, the doctor, was making all the efforts and focusing on the almost lifeless child, the child which was stillborn. Still kneeling, Andrew stared at the child with a haggard frown. The whiteness meant only one thing: asphyxia pallida, and his mind, unnaturally tense, raced back to a case he once had seen in the Samaritan to the treatment that had been used. So, when the doctor saw the lifeless child and its pale color, that is, it was totally looking white, and he felt that it was a case of asphyxia pallida. In asphyxia pallida, the skin becomes pale and there is a lack of reflexes, there is lack of oxygen in the body and more of carbon dioxide in the blood vessels. So in this case, this kind of condition causes unconsciousness and total lifelessness in the body. So the child was like a lifeless thing, and the doctor suspected that it was a case of asphyxia pallida. So he remembered, immediately he was reminded of such a case which he had seen in the Samaritan, that is the medical magazine and journal in those times. In that journal, he had also seen what treatment should have been given to such a patient. Instantly, he was on his feet. "Get me hot water and cold water." So when he was reminded of the treatment, he immediately ordered the midwife to get hot water and cold water. He threw out to the nurse, "And basins too." And he asked for 2 basins, quick, quick. But doctor, she faltered, her eyes on the pallid body of the child. "Quick," he shouted. Now the doctor had to shout at the nurse or the midwife because she wasn't able to believe what the doctor was going to do with the child. She felt that it was a dead child and it was a stillborn child. So she was confused and tired. Therefore, she was just not ready to comply by what the doctor was saying. And so Andrew had to shout at her to get the water immediately. Snatching a blanket, he laid the child upon it and began the special method of respiration. The basin arrived, the ewer, the big iron kettle. Frantically, he splashed cold water into one basin. Into the other, he mixed water as hot as his hands could bear. Then, like some crazy juggler, he hurried the child between the two, now plunging it into the icy, now into the steaming bath. So why did the doctor ask for cold water and hot water? The doctor demanded for hot water basin and cold water basin because that was the treatment to be given to the child. So once he plunged the child into hot water and then he put it in the cold water, and he was behaving like a crazy juggler. Immediately he used to take the child out of the one basin and then put it in the other basin. 15 minutes passed. Sweat was now running into Andrew's eyes, blinding him. So one of his sleeves hung down, dripping, and his breath became pantingly. But no breath came from the lax body of the child. So in this paragraph, you can see that the author is describing that Andrew Manson's efforts of dipping the child into one basin and the other basin frantically, madly, was to revive the child's breath, revive the child's life. And 15 minutes passed when nothing happened. The doctor, Andrew Manson, was himself very tired and he was panting. He was breathing very heavily, but there was no breath of a sign of breath from the lax body, that is the lifeless body of the child. A desperate sense of defeat pressed on him, a raging hopelessness. Now these kinds of feelings of hopelessness, desperation, were taking charge of Andrew's mind. That is, the doctor was feeling so defeated because he was trying to make the child alive, or he was giving all the treatment that he could do, but it was still lifeless. He felt the midwife watching him in stark consternation while there, pressed back against the wall where she had all the time remained, her hand pressed to her throat, uttering no sound, her eyes burning on him, was the old woman. He remembered her longing for a grandchild, as great as had been her daughter's longing for this child. So, in these lines, the author has said that the doctor was noticing how midwife was also confused and looking at him in anger, because she was feeling that the child is being ill-treated there by the doctor. When it is a dead child, he should not do that to it. And at the same time, he was looking at the old woman, that is Mrs. Morgan's mother, who was desperately longing for a grandchild. She wanted this grandchild to be alive. So the doctor was in a dilemma what to do, and he was making all the efforts, but there was no sign of the child reviving. So everybody in the room, that is Mrs. Morgan's mother, the midwife, and the doctor, they were in a state of consternation. That is, they were full of anxiety what to be done. The floor was now a draggled mess, that is completely wet and the things fallen all over. Stumbling over a sopping towel, Andrew almost dropped the child. So the doctor immediately wanted to take the child and do some other efforts for reviving it. He was almost about to drop the child when he was it was because it was very slippery in his hands, as his body was wet, just like a white fish. At that time, the midwife felt that there should be some mercy shown to the dead child. And then, as by a miracle, the pygmy chest, which his hands enclosed, gave a short convulsive heave, another and another. Andrew turned giddy, the sense of life springing beneath his fingers. After all, that unavailing striving was so exquisite it almost made him faint. So you can see that the body, the chest that the doctor was holding in his hands, suddenly, due to a miracle, felt that there was a convulsion, there was a heave, that is a breath, a short breath, another breath, and another breath. So Andrew was almost turning giddy because he had the sense of life in his hands springing beneath his fingers. And it was the chest of the child is called as pygmy chest, that is, it's a very small baby and newly born. So pygmy, that is small chest. And after all that unavailing striving, that is struggling for reviving the child, finally there was a short breath taken by the child, and it was so exquisite that it almost made him faint. He redoubled his efforts feverishly. The child was gasping now, deeper and deeper. A bubble of mucus came from one tiny nostril, that is the nose part. A bubble of mucus came out of it, and a joyful iridescent bubble. The limbs were no longer boneless. So iridescent means iridescent bubble, that is the bubble of mucus that had come out of his nostril. And iridescent means showing the colors. It's a transparent bubble of mucus, and it seemed to be iridescent. And the limbs were no longer boneless, that is, there was a life in him now. The head no longer lay back spinelessly, and the child was revived. So the blanched skin, the skin that had become white, was slowly turning pink, because the child was able to breathe, and it was able to breathe the oxygen which entered his body, because it was a case of lack of oxygen in his body, and that's what the doctor was trying to do. Then exquisitely came the child's cry, and finally the child cried. Father in heaven, the nurse sobbed hysterically. It's come alive. And see how the midwife, the nurse, was very happy, and she prayed to God in heaven, and she was happy to state that the child was alive now. Andrew handed her the child. He felt weak and dazed. Now, why did the doctor feel weak? Because he had been struggling for long hours. He was doing a lot of hard work, and he was even awake all the night waiting for the childbirth. So he was extremely fatigued and tired, and so he was feeling sleepy too. About him, the room lay in a shuddering litter. The room was in a shuddering litter, that is, everything was just thrown around on the floor: the blankets, the towels, the basins, soiled instruments, the hypodermic syringe impaled by its point in the linoleum, the ewer knocked over, the kettle on its side in a puddle of water. Upon the huddled bed, the mother still dreamed her way quietly through the anesthetic. That is, Mrs. Morgan did not know what was happening, and Mrs. Morgan was also trying to come out of the anesthesia. The old woman still stood against the wall, but her hands were together. Her lips moved without sound. Meanwhile, when the doctor and the midwife were trying to bring the lifeless child into life, all the efforts were being just quietly watched by the grandmother, that is Mrs. Morgan's mother. She was quietly standing against the wall and praying continuously. Mechanically, Andrew wrung out his sleeve, pulled down his jacket. "I will fetch my bag later, nurse." He went downstairs through the kitchen into the scullery. His lips were dry. Now you can see that the doctor was also quite comfortable and relaxed, and all his efforts had been successful now. He had unrolled his sleeves, and he finally wanted to relax, go home back. So he told the nurse that he will fetch his bag later on, and he went downstairs through the kitchen into the scullery. Scullery is a small adjacent room, where the dishes are washed or the other household dirty things are cleaned. His lips were dry. At the scullery, he took a long drink of water. He reached for his hat and coat. Outside, he found Joe standing on the pavement with a tense, expectant face. "All right, Joe," he said thickly. Both all right. It was quite light that it was morning time now. And because he had started his work at 3 o'clock, and he had to pay so much of attention and focus on the child and the mother both, that it normally became morning. And nearly 5 o'clock, so it became 5 o'clock at the time, Joe was still waiting outside for the news that the doctor would give. And finally, he told him that both were all right. A few miners were already in the streets, the first of the night shift moving out. As Andrew walked with them, spent and slow, his footfalls echoing with. As Andrew walked with them, spent and slow. Spent means tired, exhausted, fatigued, and slow, his footfalls echoing with the others under the morning sky. He kept thinking blindly, oblivious to all other work he had done in Blenheim. "I have done something, oh God. I have done something real at last." So these last lines of Andrew Manson, which he was thinking while he was going back home, oblivious means in his state of imagination, he was thinking that he has finally done something good in Blenheim, that is, he had revived the almost lifeless child, and he had given life to the child. So he felt and thanked God that he had done something real at last. So in this story, Birth, which is an excerpt from The Citadel, we come to see that the story relates about a medical fresher who handles the child delivery case in a mysterious way and brings back life in a seemingly dead-born child. In doing so, he applies his medical textbook knowledge as well as his intuition. So, according to you, children, now what do you think? What is the duty of a doctor? Do you think Andrew Manson, as a fresher or a doctor without much experience, had done his duty? And at the same time, what is the duty of and responsibility of a doctor? He should keep all his personal agenda or personal worries and anxieties at bay. He should keep them aside, and always the patient should be, or the welfare of the patient should be, his priority. And in this way, you can see that in this story, the message is very clear that though Andrew Manson, the doctor, was passing through a number of anxieties due to his girlfriend, and he was speculative about his married life. Therefore, he, at that time when he was most required, at the delivery case, he focused all his attention to that, keeping all his worries and anxieties away. So this is the moral of the story too, and we have come to the end of the story. I hope you liked it. Now